Hello everyone, welcome to Ops on Cloud. Today we will discuss on the interview questions for cloud engineer and architect level. We have covered two topics before: cloud adoption and migration strategies along with cloud operating models. So the interview questions and relevant answers would be discussed in this video with respect to these topics. These interview questions are applicable for any of the cloud providers that you would be practicing in, whether it is AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, Oracle. So let's dive in. So the question would be, a financial services company has a monolithic Java application which is running on on-premises with an Oracle database. They want to move to the cloud but have concerns about downtime and data integrity. What migration strategy would you propose and how would you handle the transition? So, as a senior cloud engineer and architect, so how would you analyze the situation? This scenario actually requires a careful balance between modernization and risk management. So you can say I would propose a phased migration strategy, which is fair. When I say phased, the what would be the first phase? It is always discovery and assessment. So I would do an application dependency mapping during my assessment, and also I would understand a data value and how the pattern has been established with the data based on the usage. Well, analysis, I will do an analysis on that with the frequent data usage, archive data, how it has been mapped, and also a regulatory compliance requirements that is being currently handled and what is the requirement for that, and establish a performance baseline currently to understand what is the request and response time and how the application is performing currently and what is the benchmark. When that is done, when I have this analysis done, the next phase would be to do an initial migration. So with having a very minimal risk, I would start with a database migration using hybrid connectivity. There are a lot of database migration services that are available in AWS and Azure. In Azure, it is database migration service. You can use that, and it has a complete set of steps to do unphased migration. We can actually leverage that, where I would set up a database replication to a cloud, and once the mega replication is done, I will do a validation for the data consistency and also check or test what is the performance of the data. And for application layer preparation, I would containerize the application components wherever possible. I know this is a Java application which is monolithic at this moment. If there is a chance for any components that can be containerized, I would do that, and implement cloud native logging and monitoring, whatever that is available in the Azure out of the box if it is in Azure, and set up a network connectivity. If I want a private network, a dedicated network for me, I would go with the express route. There are multiple ways where you can do that. In this scenario, I would choose express route. Once this has been done, initial migration is done, the phase 3 would be to do an application migration. So while I do that, I will implement a strangler pattern, where this pattern includes identifying independent modules, create APIs for interoperability, and gradually move functionality to cloud native services. And for the deployment strategy, I would set up a cloud environment parallel to on-premises, test with production data copy, and do a gradual traffic migration. So there are multiple deployment strategies that are available: Canary, Blue Green, and some other. So here, thinking about having concerns about the downtime, I would employ Blue Green deployment strategy. I know it is a costlier way, but the concern is about the downtime here, and Blue Green deployment strategy will help me to not have a downtime during the deployment stage. Of course, we need to have a proper disaster and recovery services for that. But with respect to deployment, we will go with the blue-green deployment. We will discuss all these things in future. There can be questions, with this single question, there can be a lot of questions, follow-up questions about all these topics. So you should be prepared to answer that, and we will try to answer all these things in the future videos. But for this specific question, so we are just highlighting the points what you can have while answering for this. The phase 4 would be to have a cutover and optimization. We will do a final data sync. I will do a final data synchronization and decide when a DNS cutover can happen, usually during a minimum business impact window. And then we will have a performance optimization after the migration, and also look at the cost management aspects of our workload in the cloud. See, the key success factors here include, for your understanding, maintaining dual write capability during transition, comprehensive testing of all business scenarios, clear rollback procedures, and detailed monitoring and alerting setup. So these are NFRs, non-functional requirements that you would weigh in. So this is a phased wise application migration that you can explain. Of course, there are a lot of other factors that come in, but this is what you can start with. Moving on, a startup is building a new SaaS platform for processing and analyzing medical images using AI. They need to comply with healthcare regulations and want to minimize operational overhead. So, which cloud service model would you recommend and why? So for this scenario actually requires careful consideration of compliance, since it involves medical images, and scalability, because they want to minimize the operational overhead and operational efficiency. I would recommend a hybrid approach using multiple service models here. And the core architecture would be something like this. I would use a fast function as a service for image pre-processing and workflow orchestration, where it would be capable of handling variable workloads efficiently, pay-per-use model for cost optimization, easy integration with event-driven workflows. And I would also use PaaS for API layer and web application, which would help me to manage the platform, which it is a managed platform, basically PaaS, platform as a service, which helps me to reduce operational overhead. It has the built-in security and compliance feature, and it helps me to do an automatic scaling and patching. And I would use IaaS for AI and ML processing, where it would give me an freedom and autonomy to choose GPU optimized instances for ML models, and have a custom configuration for performance optimization and specific security controls for PHI data to be compliant. So, and also for data management, I would use a managed database service PaaS for structured data. And you should say the service Microsoft has Azure MySQL services for this, and serverless database services, and object storage with encryption for image data, and the encryption should be at the transit and also at the rest to be compliant, and managed caching services for performance. Security implementation, identity and access management across all the layers, HIPAA compliant logging and monitoring, encryption at rest and in transit as I mentioned before, network isolation using private endpoints. So the rationale behind this hybrid approach is to ensure we have a balance with operational efficiency with more control, and also it optimizes cost through appropriate service selection, maintains compliance requirements, along with providing flexibility for future scaling as well. So again, each of these points can be drilled down can have a follow-up questions. So we would discuss all these things in future about each and every topic. For example, uh, you know, manage database service for structured data. So there are a number of options that are available in Microsoft Azure and AWS. So we would discuss when to use what kind of database and what are the services that it offers. So here what we need to remember is how would we approach the problem. Choosing the services, yes, there are a lot of services we can choose, but how do we approach the problem is the main point while we answer such kind of questions. Moving on, what factors do you consider when selecting between IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS for a new application deployment? So here there are four key things that we need to keep in mind while answering this. This ensures that your basic understanding is proper regarding these service models. So if you want a control and customization, I would use IaaS. I'll choose when I need a full control over the OS, middleware, and runtime. Basically, it is ideal for legacy or custom applications. And if I want speed and developer efficiency, I would choose platform as services to accelerate development, leverage managed services, and reduce optional overhead. And if there's a need for operations in simplicity, SaaS can be used for standard application, for example, CRM, ERP, where customization isn't a primary requirement, where you can just acquire licenses based on your uh, uh, requirement and then straight away use it. And cost consideration. This is driven by budget and TCO. Evaluate the total cost of ownership, including licensing, management, and support costs. For example, for a new marketing analytics tool, I would prefer to use PaaS. Why? Because to quickly develop and deploy a solution with integrated data services rather than building infrastructure from the scratch with IaaS or limiting customization with SaaS. Next question. Can you describe a scenario where a hybrid cloud model is the best fit, and what design considerations would you apply? The scenario is something like this. And a healthcare provider needs to store and process sensitive patient data securely while offering a scalable patient portal for appointment scheduling and telehealth services. Sensitive patient data here in the sense the lab results, the consultation notes from the doctor, and also the payment receipts that you have done for the services. So the design consideration would be to understand the data. So I would do a data segregation here. Keep sensitive data in a private cloud to ensure compliance with healthcare regulation. Example, HIPAA certifications. And for scalability, I would use a public cloud for the patient portal to handle variable traffic loads. So data segregation, we discussed about what kind of data we would need to store, which are considered as secure data. When it comes to scalability, how do you access the data, right? You would usually have a web portal or on a mobile application. So that I would have in public cloud, but not the actual data that is connected from that web portal. So for that, I would use a public cloud to handle the variable traffic loads. Connectivity. Ensure secure and reliable connectivity between on-premises, that is a private cloud, and public cloud environments. Security and compliance. So implementing end-to-end encryption, robust identity and access management, and continuous monitoring across both environments. Example, by deploying a hybrid model, the provider maintains full control over patients' records while leveraging public cloud elasticity is the keyword here for front-end services, as I explained, ensuring both compliance and performance. So with that, And there can be a question where you will be asked, what challenges might you face when implementing a cloud adoption strategy in a global organization, and how would you mitigate them? Okay, the challenges: latency and performance. See, this is a global organization, so the data has to be available globally for global users. So latency and performance is a challenge here. Managing network latency for users across diverse geographic regions. Data sovereignty. Complying with varying local data residency and privacy laws. If it's a global, I'll give an example where if you take credit card industry, right? Singapore and India has a different laws with respect to credit card. They mandatorily require PIN if there is a chip. If you have a chip card for any credit card, your PIN is required to approve or decline a transaction. Whereas in United States, most of the states does not require PIN, right? So there are local laws that we need to take into consideration. That is data sovereignty. That's a challenge. Regulatory compliance, aligning with different regulatory environments. For example, GDPR in Europe. Operational complexity, coordinating multi-region deployments with consistent policies and governance. So to mitigate these strategies, we should have a regional deployments where we have to architect and design multi-region or multi-zone deployments to ensure data is stored near users. There are several services that are available to do this. We would discuss all those services in different clouds in future, but to answer, this is how you would start. And content delivery networks, CDNs, use CDNs to cache and serve content globally, reducing latency. For example, you can use Akamai Azure CDN, and CDN service available in AWS. Local compliance, choose cloud providers with data centers in the required regions and build compliance into the design. This is very much important. So each cloud providers has a data center across the geography. For example, when I was okay, let's finish this. Centralized management, implement global management and monitoring tools to maintain consistency across regions. So to give an example, I was involved in an RFP for the Indian central government, where they want to build a website for the central government employees. Their condition was to have the redundancy. The data has to be redundant, it should be always available, and they also wanted to have a disaster recovery strategy, solid disaster recovery strategy. At that point of time, AWS did not have its data center of multiple data center available within India, but Microsoft Azure had its present in Central India and South India. So due to the compliance issue or the regulatory parameters that has been laid out by Indian government, which is an organization which called as MeitY. According to them, only Microsoft Azure was compliant enough to have this project implemented, not AWS at that point of time. But now AWS has their presence in India with multiple data centers that can be considered. So there are a lot of things that go while we do an architecting for any requirement. Just an example. Moving on, how do you approach ensuring security and compliance during cloud migration for industries like healthcare and finance? So usually healthcare, finance always are kind of risk industries because they handle such kind of data. So that's why people are keen to know what is your understanding of handling the data with respect to compliance and security. So first of all, I would say that I will understand the regulation first, identify relevant standards, map out industry specific regulations such as HIPAA, PCI DSS or GDPR, and implement multi-layer security. How? By doing encryption, enforce encryptions for data in transit and at rest. Identify and access management, apply multi-factor authentication and RBAC policies. Security tools, utilize cloud native security services, for example, AWS GuardDuty, Azure Security Center. You can also use Azure Defender for your data for IaaS for continuous monitoring. Shared responsibility model, define responsibilities clearly. Clearly delineate which security aspects are managed by the cloud provider versus the organization. I will have that checklist ready so that I would know for what I'm responsible for, and I will make sure I will be compliant with that. Compliance audits. Do a continuous auditing, get a continuous feedback loop, establish a continuous feedback loop for your security parameters. Regularly audit and update policies to align with evolving regulatory standards. For example, for a banking application, right? A credit card industry, American Express architected a solution that stored transaction data in encrypted databases on a private cloud, while using a public cloud for non-sensitive customer interactions, ensuring strict adherence to PCI DSS and regular compliance audits. So with this, I would like to conclude this episode. Thank you. Comment below on the topic if you have any questions. Let's have a discussion. And also, what are some of the interview questions that you experienced? You can comment below and we'll have a discussion. And if you have any questions with the content or any feedback, drop a comment. We will discuss. Subscribe for more contents and discussions. And I hope you like this. And if you like this, please give a like and share. Thank you.